You're walking along a ridge in Europe. It's 45,000 BC. The wind is cold and wet and mean. And down in the valley below you, you see smoke. Another campfire. But it isn't your people. The figures moving around that fire are shorter than you. Broader. Stronger. Their faces are heavy and their brows are thick. They are human. Just not your kind of human. Back then, that was completely normal. A person could walk for a single month and meet 3 or 4 different species of human. Some tall, some tiny, some you could even have children with. Today, none of them are left. Not one. Look across the entire planet at 8 billion people, and every single one of them is the same species. You. So here's the question that should keep you up tonight. Why are we the only ones? Think about how strange that actually is. For almost the entire story of humanity, this planet had many kinds of human on it at the same time. That was the default setting. At least 9 different species of the genus Homo were walking around. 300,000 years ago, spread across Africa, Europe, and Asia. Add up the whole family tree, and scientists have named somewhere around 21 separate human species. The exact number depends on which expert you ask and how they slice the branches. But it's a lot, and every last one of them, except ours, is gone. Now, you'd assume the survivor would be the biggest, the strongest, the one with the largest brain in the room. But that assumption is wrong on all 3 counts. Some of the humans who vanished were physically stronger than us. At least one of them had a bigger brain than us. So raw strength didn't save our species. Big brains didn't save it either. Something else did, and it's stranger than you'd ever guess. Here's the thing nobody tells you. There is no single simple reason we're the last ones standing. It's not one thing. It's never one thing. It's a stack of small advantages, a terrifying brush with total extinction, a good helping of luck, and one final twist that completely changes what the word extinct even means. By the end of this, you're going to realize you are not nearly as alone as you feel right now. Let's go. Let's start with something that sounds made up, but absolutely isn't. For most of the last 2 million years, being human did not mean being one species. It meant being one of many. Picture a family tree, except it isn't shaped like a tidy tree at all. It's a bush, thick, tangled, with branches shooting off in every direction. Homo erectus showed up almost 2 million years ago and then survived for well over 1 million years. Let that number really sink in for a moment. Homo erectus lasted maybe 10 times longer than our species has even existed so far. They walked out of Africa, spread clear across Asia, tamed fire, and just kept going and going. By comparison, our own species has only been around for roughly 300,000 years. Next to Homo erectus, we are the brand new arrivals who just walked in the door. Meanwhile, other branches kept splitting off on their own. The Neanderthals settled into Europe. The Denisovans spread across Asia, and we barely have their bones at all. We mostly know them from scraps of DNA and a single fossil pinky finger. And here's the key thing to hold on to. These weren't a neat relay race, one species politely handing a baton to the next. They were cousins. They were alive at the same time, breathing the same air, sometimes living within walking distance of each other. For a long, long stretch of time, if you met a human out there was a real chance it simply wasn't your kind. And nobody found that strange, because it was just ordinary life. Now let me actually introduce you to the neighbors, because a few of them are genuinely unforgettable. On the island of Flores in Indonesia, there lived a kind of human that stood only about 3 feet 6 inches tall. Scientists dug her out of a cave back in 2004 and nicknamed her the Hobbit. Her proper name is Homo floresiensis. She had a brain roughly the size of a grapefruit, and yet she still made stone tools, used fire, and hunted. Hunted what exactly? Dwarf elephants, on an island also patrolled by Komodo dragons the size of a small car. Picture that scene for just a second. A 3.5-foot tall human, gripping a wooden spear, creeping past a giant lizard to hunt a miniature elephant. That is not a scene from a fantasy film. It's a real place that really existed around 60,000 years ago. And she was not alone out there in the world. Nearly 2,000 miles away, in the Philippines, another tiny human species called Homo luzonensis was living at almost the exact same time, Further south, in South Africa, a small-brained human called Homo naledi may have carried its own dead deep into a pitch-black underground cave. Its brain was barely a third the size of ours, yet its bones turned up in a chamber so dark, so narrow, and so hard to reach that some researchers believe the bodies were placed there deliberately. If that's true, then a creature with a brain the size of an orange was doing something we thought belonged to us alone, treating death as something that mattered. These were not monsters. They were people. They were just different rough drafts of the same idea. And they didn't all keep politely to themselves either. In 2018, in a single cave in Siberia, scientists found a tiny sliver of bone from a girl who lived around 90,000 years ago. When they finally read her DNA, they got the shock of their careers. Her mother was a Neanderthal. Her father was a Denisovan. She was a first-generation hybrid, the direct child of two completely different human species. Researchers nicknamed her Denny. Think about what that little bone actually proves. Different kinds of human didn't just cross paths. They fell in together. They had families. The boundaries between these species were far blurrier and far more intimate than the neat labels in a textbook would ever suggest. Hold on to that idea, because it comes roaring back at the very end. Now here's a misconception I want to smash right now. When you hear the word Neanderthal, you probably picture a grunting, hunched, stupid brute dragging a wooden club. Drop that picture completely. It is flat wrong. Neanderthals had brains that were, on average, actually a little bigger than ours. They controlled fire, cooked their food, and built genuinely clever tools. They wore animal furs and treated their wounds with medicinal plants. They made jewelry out of eagle talons. In caves in Spain, there are wall paintings older than any our own species made in Europe. And the best evidence we currently have says Neanderthal hands created them. And they cared for each other. In a cave in Iraq called Shanidar, one Neanderthal man lived for years with a withered arm, a crushed eye socket, and a badly damaged leg. He could not possibly have survived those injuries alone. Someone fed him. Someone sheltered him. Someone chose to keep him alive. That is not blind animal instinct. That is compassion. So if they were that capable, that clever, that deeply and recognizably human, the mystery only gets deeper. Why did they vanish while we did not? Before you get too comfortable up there on the winning team, here's a fact that should knock you down a peg. Our own ancestors very nearly died out completely. Not the other humans, ours. In 2023, a study published in the journal Science combed through the genomes of more than 3,000 living people and found a scar hidden deep inside our DNA. Around 900,000 years ago, the population of our direct ancestors crashed. It crashed hard. At the very bottom of it, there may have been only about 1,280 breeding individuals left alive on the whole planet. That's it. That's the population of a tiny village. For over 100,000 years, that fragile little group clung on by its fingernails. And by the study's estimate, close to 99% of our ancestors were simply gone. We came within a hair of never happening at all. So when you ask why we are the only humans left, hold on to this. We very nearly weren't any humans at all. Our whole lineage got dangerously close to zero. And somehow, against absurd odds, it squeaked through the gap. Which brings us to the real question. If it wasn't muscle, and it wasn't the size of our brains, then what on earth was our actual edge? The best answer we have is connection. Our species got very good at cooperating in large numbers with people it had never even met before. Neanderthals tended to live in small, tight, closed family bands. They were strong, but each band was basically an island unto itself. Our ancestors instead built webs. Archaeologists digging through ancient human camps in Africa keep finding stone tools made from rock that was quarried as far as 60 miles away. That means trade. That means one group handing something valuable to another group passed along a chain across a whole landscape. And to trade with strangers, you first have to trust strangers. To trust strangers, you need something genuinely powerful. Language let our ancestors gossip, plan ahead, and pass down knowledge that outlived the person who first learned it. A Neanderthal band only knew what its own members knew. A human network knew what hundreds of people knew, stretching back across generations. When times turned brutal, that web is the thing that caught us when we fell. And look at what that planning made possible. Around 50,000 years ago, our ancestors reached Australia. To get there, they had to cross open ocean, out of sight of land. On boats or rafts we've never even found. No other human species ever pulled that off. It takes tools, teamwork, and the nerve to gamble on a coastline you cannot yet see. That is our whole story in a single voyage. But connection on its own still doesn't quite explain it, because plenty of animals cooperate. Here's the deeper trick, the one that might be the real superpower. Our ancestors could believe in things that don't physically exist. In a cave in Germany, someone carved a figurine around 40,000 years ago. It's a standing human body with the head of a lion. It's the oldest known sculpture of something that has never existed in the real world. Think about what it takes to carve that. You have to imagine a thing, hold it in your mind, and then agree with other people that it means something. That single ability is the engine of everything, a shared story about ancestors watching over the tribe, a symbol that says, we are all one people, a belief that binds strangers together. Those shared fictions let people who had never met act like family. You can hold maybe 150 people together through personal friendship alone. But to move thousands of people as one, you need a story they all believe in. Cave paintings, carved ornaments, and buried treasures are the fingerprints of that imagination. And as far as we can tell, our species leaned on that power harder and earlier than anyone else ever did. And then, on top of all that, there were the little advantages. The unglamorous, boring ones that quietly decided everything. Take the humble sewing needle. Our ancestors carved fine needles out of bone and stitched together fitted. Layered clothing that actually sealed out the cold. Neanderthals, who lived through some of the most brutal Ice Age winters imaginable, mostly just draped loose hides over their shoulders. In a frozen world, the species with the better coat quietly wins. Then think about the way we hunted. Our ancestors learned to throw. Spears, darts, and later spear throwers, letting us kill big animals from a safe distance. A huge number of Neanderthal skeletons are covered in healed fractures, the exact kind of injuries you get from wrestling enormous animals up close. A bit like modern rodeo riders. We fought smart, they fought hard. And then just maybe, there were the dogs. One researcher named Pat Shipman argues that we teamed up with wolves, slowly turning them into loyal hunting partners. Possibly thousands of years before the Neanderthals faded away. A human backed by a pack of dogs is a completely different kind of predator. No single one of these is the whole answer on its own. But stack them all together over thousands and thousands of years, and they quietly tilt the entire board in one direction. There's also the simple, brutal matter of weather and timing. The last ice age was not one steady, predictable deep freeze. It lurched and staggered. Temperatures could swing wildly inside a single human lifetime. Forests turning to open grassland and then back into forest again. A big, flexible, well-connected network of humans could change its diet, pack up, and move when the land shifted underneath it. But a small, highly specialized band, perfectly tuned to hunting particular animals in a particular forest, could suddenly find itself stranded when that whole world melted away. And this is the quiet tragedy of the Neanderthals. They were superbly, beautifully adapted to a version of Europe that kept refusing to stay put. Their strength and their thick bodies were built for close-range hunting in cold woodland. When the climate yanked that world out from under them, being perfectly adapted to yesterday became a slow death sentence. Being a flexible generalist, a jack of all trades and master of none, turned out to be the winning hand. Not because it was impressive, but because it bent instead of breaking. Now let's be honest with each other for a minute. I've made all of this sound a lot cleaner and tidier than it really is. The truth is, scientists still argue fiercely about almost every single piece of this puzzle. That dramatic story about our population crashing down to 1,200 people? A newer analysis in 2024 argued it might be partly a statistical illusion rather than a real event. The dog theory is genuinely exciting, but the earliest solid evidence for tamed wolves might come along far too late to have doomed the Neanderthals at all, and there was never a single day, no great war, where our species marched in and wiped the others off the map. It really wasn't like that. In most places, the other humans simply faded away as the climate whipsawed back and forth. Their small populations shrank, and their world slowly got harder to survive in. Some starved. Some were absorbed into our groups. Some just quietly stopped having enough children to carry on. Extinction is almost never a dramatic battle. Usually, it's a long, slow, quiet math problem. And eventually, the numbers just tick down to zero. So anyone who tells you they know exactly why we won is selling you something. We have strong clues. We do not have a confession. But there's one last thing I saved for the very end. And it's the wildest part of the whole story. Are you ready for this? The other humans did not entirely disappear. Some of them are inside you. Right now, as you're listening to this, when our ancestors met the Neanderthals, they didn't only fight them. Remember Denny, that hybrid girl in the cave? That was happening everywhere. Our ancestors had children with them, and those children had children, all the way down the line to you. If your family comes from anywhere outside of Africa, you are carrying roughly 1 to 2% Neanderthal DNA in your body at this very moment. And the Denisovans, that mysterious Asian cousin, people across parts of Melanesia carry as much as 4 to 6% Denisovan DNA. And this isn't useless genetic junk either. A gene that helps Tibetan people breathe easily in thin mountain air was handed straight down from the Denisovans. Some of the genes that fine-tune your immune system, your skin, and even how your body once fought off certain diseases were direct gifts from people who supposedly went extinct 40,000 years ago. So really sit with what that means. We didn't simply outlast the other humans. We loved some of them. We merged with them. They live on, quietly, in the blood of billions of people who have absolutely no idea they're carrying them. So here's the single line I want you to actually remember from all of this. They didn't all die out. Some of them became us. That's not poetry. That's genetics. So let's go back to you, standing on that cold ridge, staring down at a campfire that isn't yours. Every one of those other humans is your distant family. The strong ones and the tiny ones. The ones who painted deep caves and the ones who buried their dead with care. You are simply what happened when one branch of that giant bush got lucky, stayed connected, and just kept walking. You are not really the only human species left. You're the last chapter of every single one of them, written down inside one body. So the next time you feel small and alone in this universe, remember this. You are carrying the survivors of 100,000 years of near misses. Every one of your ancestors, human and almost human alike, managed to hold on just long enough to pass the story forward. And now the whole story is you. If this rewired how you see yourself, stick around for more.